My
Oh,
favorite medium, I can tell you about mine.
yeah, let's hear it.
Well, it used to be printmaking, like old school etching into a metal plate was my favorite thing. And I don't get to do it as much because it's hard to have like a printing press in your house with kids. So like my favorite in my soul is that. But lately I've been using Procreate for just about everything. So it's a definitely the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in Costa Rica right now. I'm actually in a co-working space and there's this massive storm going on in the town. So half the town doesn't have power. And I'm like, come on, co-working space, stay strong. But yeah, I don't have my watercolors with me right now. So I've actually been doing a bunch of Procreate illustration because while I'm traveling, it's just my iPad and an Apple Pencil. So it's easy to travel with.
It is. It's super easy. In fact, every time I've gotten a new iPad now, and now my kids share my old iPad because it was time to upgrade. And so now they're all mastering Procreate. And I swear my daughter Lucy's better at it than I am. And she's just 11. And watch out, world, for Lucy Bloomfield. She's coming. So, yeah,
Oh, that's amazing. My niece is only 2, so I can't teach her Procreate yet. She'd just chew on the pencil, but we'll get there
someday, someday.
someday. All right, a lot of people coming in. A lot of people there's a lot of different mediums actually represented in the chat here. A lot of Procreate, a lot of analog stuff too, which is cool because I also started as an analog artist with watercolor and acrylic. All right, well, I think we've got a good number of people here. Stacy, ready to just dive right in?
I'm so ready to just dive in with you and everybody here. First, can I just say thank you for coming? Like, thank you. It feels really good.
So yeah, so this is an hour-long Zoom call where Stacy and I are going to talk about kind of our expertise with art licensing, surface design, all that jazz. So we've got a lot of pre-submitted questions. So we're going to get through as many of those as possible. And then we're going to also be taking questions from everyone in the chat. So throughout our conversation today, if you have any questions for us, you can just pop those into the chat and we'll get to those during the second half of the call. So yeah, first of all, let's see, Stacy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Stacy Bloomfield. I am an artist. I live in Arkansas. I don't travel as I make art yet because I have 3 kids who are kind of keeping me anchored here, but maybe someday I will be footloose and fancy free. So I'm an illustrator. I've been illustrating for 14 years and I have a brand name called Gingiber. So I started out working as a coffee shop manager, dreaming of maybe having art be a part of my life again. And in the margins of my life, I start things early and faster than I should. Let me just say that. I got married when I was 19, had my first baby when I was 22, and that's fine, but it was a lot for a youngster. I was managing a coffee shop by the time I was that age, had graduated college, and was like, I know, I don't like anything I'm doing at work. I want to be an artist, but I don't know how. So I just started working at it after work. I put my daughter to bed, and then I would draw. And so I opened an Etsy shop and started there just doing nursery illustrations, first to decorate my own daughter's room. And then it took a while, but people on Etsy started hearting my pieces. And I was like, yes. And I tried a lot of different things in mediums, handmade aprons, stuffed animals, you name it. But it was the illustration that really began to stick. So in 3 years, I sold enough illustrations on various products that I produced myself to try to go at being an artist full time. So I quit my day job and I've been a full-time artist ever since. I do product. I sell products at about 1,400 brick and mortar stores. They're all filled with my illustrations, which is the coolest thing ever. And my kids are starting to notice when they see my products in stores, which they're like, Mom, that's yours. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And then we sell on our own website, gingiber.com. But art licensing, my friends, is probably the thing that I love the most because a few years into doing all of this, I started getting to work with other companies to put my art on their products. And I'm still getting royalty checks. I checked actually. I have a contract that's 8 years old and I'm still getting payments from it. And that is insane. So I love art licensing. I love taking my art and getting as much mileage out of it as humanly possible. And I love getting to do what I've always known in my bones I was supposed to be, which is an artist. I've known since I was a little girl. And I think that there's room for all of us to make art in our life and maybe create some income from it. So that's me.
That's a great intro. Wow, Stacy, thank you. Nicely done. I'll give a quick intro to myself as well. You might already know me, but yeah, my name is CatCoq. My company is called CatCoq. And a similar journey to Stacy, although I've not been active as long. I've been licensing for about 8 years. I started with print on demand websites like Society6 and Redbubble back in 2014. And that kind of, snowballed into licensing opportunities. And now I work with brands like Target, Urban Outfitters, Anthropologie, Nordstrom, and a bunch more. So I'm also a teacher. I have 25 at this point online classes that teach everything from art licensing to watercolor to growing your creative business. So I invited Stacy here today for the Zoom call so that we can, kind of bounce back and forth, answer some questions, share expertise. And also Stacy is prepping for her big program that launches next week. So it's open for enrollment right now.
Right now. And then everyone starts class like next week. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, it's called Leverage Your Art. And I'm affiliating for it this year, which I'm really excited about because I know Stacy personally. We're in a mastermind together and she knows her stuff. So yeah, Stacy, do you want to talk really quickly about Leverage Your Art and what it actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an 8-week course called Leverage Your Art. It's taught semi-live. So every week I drop a new module of the course. And in this course, we're not just talking about art licensing, although art licensing is kind of the center of everything we do. We talk about how artists can learn to have confidence as an artist, talk about themselves and share about them and find a unique point of view, because it does feel like there's a lot of people out there because social media is just always feeding us more of what we're interested in. So sometimes artists are intimidated. So we're going to teach artists how to find their voice, find their style, create portfolios and share their work. We teach you 5 different ways to share your work via portfolios, tear sheets, all sorts of goodies. And then I also teach you about how to make money from your art while that art is being licensed elsewhere. So you can take one piece of art and you can put it on your own products to sell. You can license that one piece of art to multiple different categories. You can teach about how to make art. And really, artists have this unique point of view to where we can do one thing and create multiple income streams from it. And so Leverage Your Art is there to teach artists how to kind of build, if our careers are a table, we want it to be stable. So at least 3 legs to that table, right? Can hold up a table. And so that's kind of how I think of it, is the 3 legs of your art business. It's like 3 different income streams. And that's where ultimately I hope artists end up. Sometimes people say 4, but I've learned that tables can stand up with 3 legs. Therefore, I'm saying 3.
I love it. Bam. Okay, cool. Well, let's just get right into it. We've got a ton of really, really great pre-submitted questions. So we're going to start there. But just a reminder again, if you have any questions throughout, just pop those into the chat and we'll get to those during the second half of the call. All right, let's just dive right in. Stacy, the first question is for you, and it's from Sumana. And she asks, how can a surface designer earn stable and consistent monthly income through their art?
Did I get muted? I don't even remember what happened. So there's a little ghosty ghost clicking, making me mute. All right. I will not be silenced, universe. I will tell you, there are so many different ways that you can create a stable income. And sometimes it's not as obvious. It's not the obvious way forward in order to really get started and create stability. Yes, we'll talk about art licensing because I think long-term art licensing is one of the most stabilizing revenue streams you can have. Once you license your art, you get paid for it again and again. And really, time is the only cost, right? It's just your time. There's no financial overhead. But if you're first starting out and you're thinking, I just need to get income coming in right now, one of my favorite things to do is to start taking commissions. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm saying long-term you can only do custom work. But if you were today to go on social media and be like, I am opening up 4 spots this month to do custom pet portraits, house portraits, wedding portraits, and have a few examples to show you, to show people, you would book those and you could consistently every month figure out how much time it takes you to make one custom piece and book as many as you can to create revenue. I did that early on. In fact, I was doing like silhouettes. That's like how I did it. Custom silhouettes of children. And people would pay me just to draw their silhouette and do put their name on it and some little design details. That stabilized me early on in my career while I was trying to find my voice as an artist. Other thing I would recommend is if you're inclined to create a little product, because I love product, like that's really where I cut my teeth. Holidays, the holiday season, if you were looking for like a once a year revenue stream, Make something exclusive just for the holiday season. It can be one item that's special and limited edition, and share about it online with your newsletter that I hope you're growing, and tell the story of why and make it an annual thing. I sell this tea towel calendar and we're on our 5th year, and every year we sell more and more of them because people collect them. So as an artist, there's so many different ways forward.
I love that. Great answer. It's true. It's everybody has their own, everyone has their own journey and you need to figure out what works for you. But I think commissions is really smart. Pets and people, those are the two that do so well with commissions work.
It's
Cool.
true. And, I'll just add this. If you're someone who you're like, well, I don't know how to print and ship one of like a portrait or something, like I don't have that capability. There are places online that'll print it for you and ship it for you. So it's one of those things where no matter where you live, you can serve people all over the world with your talent. So I just want to throw that out there.
I love that. And then pro tip here, I use a white label print on demand platform called Printful to do all of the fulfillment on my end. So when one of my friends or someone from my shop orders something, it gets fulfilled through them. So it's an easy way that I don't have a printer. I'm traveling all the time, so it's pretty easy. Okay, cool. Next question is for me, and it's Theo, and she asks, how do you start promoting yourself at the very beginning? Apart from platforms like Instagram, where else were you promoting your artwork? So yeah, very beginning, going back to 2014, I was doing a bunch of stuff. I was promoting on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook did a little bit, Instagram picked up a little bit more, but I was also doing craft shows. So I was living in Kansas City at the time. And so anytime there would be some sort of like art show, craft show, anything like that, I would fork up the investment for the booth, which in Kansas City was around like $350 usually for shows, which at the time was terrifying. But it's those risks you take at the beginning. And then I started recouping, the investment and sold a lot of those craft shows. The other important thing that happened from those shows were I made local connections. And so a lot of businesses would come through and I got some consignment opportunities out of that. So it worked out pretty well. I also emailed samples of my artwork and actually shipped products to brands that I wanted to work with. That part didn't work out as well because I didn't have a call to action. I would just be like, here's a pretty art print and then say nothing. So if you are going to do outreach, and we'll hit hard on pitching a little bit later because we have a lot of questions about pitching, but always have a call to action. Give someone your ask, right? And in my case, it would be, do you want to carry my products for consignment? Do you want a license? Yada, yada, yada. Other things I did, I started a blog so that I could get organic traffic to my website. That worked out pretty well. And now it's become this very robust blog, 8 years later, where I have tutorials and I get a lot of organic traffic. I also started offering free printables online and so that I could build up my email list. So I was focused on growing my email list for the first few years of my business, even though I didn't send out any emails because I didn't feel like I was ready, which we'll address that later too, that kind of imposter syndrome, all of that. But yeah, I started collecting emails. And then when I did feel ready, I started utilizing my email list to let them know when I had new prints available in my shop. So there's a lot of ways you can market yourself outside of social media.
Absolutely. And I think we're cut from the same cloth because I use a lot of similar approaches. Something I'll add is a lot of times artists will get brave to do a craft show, but they won't collect emails. And I always tell people, like, you just got to put one piece of paper out on your table, tape it down, and ask every single person who comes, even if they don't buy anything, can I get your email address? We'll talk more about trade shows, but it always shocked me whenever I'd see artists, they'd get business cards and then they'd throw them away at the end of the show. And I'd be like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, it just takes a lot of time to like type in the email addresses. So I'm not going to take them with me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gold, because a contact on an email, like you can talk to that person so much easier than just on social media. Can I add one other thing maybe for getting your name out there?
Let's hear it.
Collaboration. So I have done this. I've been on the receiving end of someone who has a slightly bigger following than me, collaborating with me and introducing me to their audience. Like Kat, right now we're collaborating and it's fun on the art side, but also for me now, I get to help a lot of artists and kind of share their skills and talents and products with my own audience. So a collaboration can look a lot of different ways. Of course, we're going to talk about art licensing collaborations, which is like next level awesome. But if you're first starting out and trying to build an audience, if you have a colleague or a friend that you have a relationship with, say, hey, can we partner on a project together? Like maybe I draw the animal and you draw the flowers and we release it as a print and sell it together. Or perhaps like we can share a trade show booth together or a craft show booth, and maybe they get a slightly bigger part of the booth and you can help subsidize your payments because of that. I think as long as you're willing to contribute and show like the value you can bring, and if you're a hard worker, that is value. And hard work is probably the thing that's gotten me as far as I have. It will get you in front of new audiences, and then you just pay it forward as you grow. And that's really fun.
I love that answer. I didn't even mention this, but I also collaborated on art shows where I would split the booth cost with a friend who would be selling something. And one, it's great because it divides the cost and you still get to showcase your work. And two, it was just fun to have a friend at those shows because they can drag on and be a little bit boring after 8 hours or so. So yeah. Okay, next question. Actually, Stacie, I'm going to hit you with 3 questions back to back because a lot of the questions that we had from the pre-submitted were all related to pitching your work to clients for licensing deals or pitching to customers. And this is your forte for sure. So I want to give you
talking about myself. I love it.
All right, let's just dive in. Okay, so first one is from Janai, and she asks, how long does it take for a complete beginner to learn the pattern designing skills and create a portfolio to start pitching and earning?
Ooh, well, that's a lot of variables in that question, because what I always like to start with is like everyone's journey and timeline is going to be very different. And so it's incredibly hard to quantify. And if I were to say it could take you, it would take you a year. There might be someone it takes a year for, but based on your time and availability, it could take you longer or shorter. So I have this free mini course called the Artist Side Hustle, where we talk about if you only have 5 hours a week, what you can do with those 5 hours a week. Because I know a lot of people who are full-time teachers and they're working on their art business on the side, and they're learning Illustrator and Procreate to build a portfolio, but it's going to take them a month to build a full collection versus someone who is working full time and has, unlimited resources. It really depends. So I can't give you a perfect answer, but what I will tell you is your portfolio is going to evolve over time, and you don't have to have the largest portfolio to start creating income. My first portfolio was a collage that I created and inserted into emails, and it had like the highlights of like 8 of my favorite pieces. I didn't know anything about surface pattern design. I was drawing animals and they weren't realistic. I want to be really clear. I've seen some comments like, I'm not a portrait artist. Well, I'm not either, but I kind of found this illustrative, I don't want to call it cartoony, but illustrative style, kind of storybook style, I guess you could say, where if I'm going to draw a lion, it's going to look like a lion my way, my point of view. So my point is, friends, is you're going to take your time to find your point of view, make a collection that is something you're proud of. The number doesn't matter as much as the quality of the work. And then the frequency of how much you're putting yourself out into the world increases your odds of like actually creating income. I'm one of those people that like, I just don't quit. I am like a boomerang. So I throw something out into the world, and if it does, and I hope it comes back to me, and I chase it down and I throw it again and I tweak. So if you're willing to revise and tweak and just not give up, time is on your side. So let's not limit it.
I love that answer. It's so true. I like your boomerang analogy too. I feel the same way, like persistence. But it pays off. You can be a little bit annoying, but it does pay off over time just to continue, putting yourself out there, being okay with failure, rejection, because you're going to get a lot of those in licensing. But, for every 5 rejections I've had, I get 1 really, really good deal. So persistence is absolutely key.
Yeah.
Okay, Stacie, another one for you on pitching is going to be, it's from Carrie. And she asks, what is the best way to approach companies for licensing pattern designs?
Ooh, okay. So with patterns, I want you to really think about the product that you can visualize your pattern on. And a lot of times artists do think I have to do surface pattern design to license, but you can license a full illustration, a standalone little spot illustration, or repeat patterns. There's a lot of opportunity. But for me first, I always like to think of like, where would I find repeat patterns on products? So fabric is really a good place to start. So when I was pitching for fabric companies, well, how do you put this? I'm like Veronica Mars. I'm very persistent in trying to find people to contact. And even if I email the wrong person, I keep emailing until I find the right person. So first you decide on like the product categories that you're interested in. So if it's fabric, you're going to start with fabric. And then you're going to say, well, how do I learn as much as I can about fabric and where I'm going to fit into this world? Follow hashtags on social media, maybe join some Facebook groups, or walk a quilt shop, where fabric's being sold, and kind of get a feel for the brands that are there. There are some brands that I thought I was a good fit for, and some I could tell right away that my art style wasn't a good fit for. So narrow it down to maybe like 5 to 10 companies where you're like, maybe I could fit there. And then you're going to research who they have in their artist repertoire. Because a lot of times companies who want patterns, and they want this, they don't want duplicates of each other. That's why our point of view is incredibly, has to come through our art, so that your unique perspective as an artist is seen in everything you touch, even a repeat of a flower, because there's so many ways to draw a flower. And so once you kind of find the companies that are your niche, and you find well, I think there's a spot for me, you're going to write a pitch email, and you're going to send them a short, sweet, and to the point pitch email and link to your portfolio. And if you want, you can put a small little JPEG in that email, but not very big. I don't attach things to my email so they don't bounce. Really, really small image. And you're going to send that email. And then you're going to follow up on that email and send it again. And you're going to say, hi, remember me? But you're going to say it politely. And I like to use a little app called Streak. I use Gmail. And I use an app called Streak because it will show me if someone opens my emails. So then I know, well, did someone open my email? I've got an opening. I've got a shot. And I hold that door open and I just kind of pry it open. And then it's persistence. It is follow up, making new work and showing it, and kind of setting a routine and a schedule. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I get my foot in the door. And then I just focus it on the next industry. And I'm like, all right, fabric, check. Let's look at wallpaper. And we go from there.
To piggyback off of what Stacy said also, in terms of finding out who to actually contact, she mentioned going into the fabric store, looking at fabric manufacturers. I do the same thing. Walk into Target. Example, if I want my work printed on stationery products, I'll go into Target, go into the stationery aisle, and literally just lift up the journals, flip them over, and see who the manufacturer is, snap a photo with my phone, and I've already built up a list of manufacturers that I can reach out to for targeting placement in Target. So I don't work exactly with Target. I work with a manufacturer that creates products that then puts them into Target. So when you're reaching out, who you should be reaching out to, it's going to be the manufacturers that create the products that then get placed into the stores. So just quick tip there, if you want to know who to reach out to, just walk into the store you want to license through, look at their products, and then reach out to those companies that created the products. So, all right. One more pitch related one for Stacy. We're going to come back to pitching in a little bit, but last one for now is from Hillary. And she asks, what exactly should I prepare for a submission or pitch, and how exactly is the best way to submit it? Email, what's the best way to word it? What information should I include or exclude?
Okay, well, I'm going to mention my course only because I really talk about this a ton in my course. We have pitch email templates in my course, and we walk people through how to write a pitch and send it from start to finish. I'm going to tell you, it depends on the type of product that you're trying to get your foot in the door with. When I did books, for instance, and I was trying to get a book deal, I'm going to create something a little different than a portfolio. And I won't go into details right now because we're not talking books a lot. But I created a little mini starter of what a book would be if I created it. So it was my ideas for a book, some sample illustrations, some text, all about me, my stats, what is it that is cool about Stacie Bloomfield and why would you want to work with me? Brag on yourself. And so with books, it's kind of like that, but you're kind of making a mini book. Now let's go back to product itself. I think that this is where, in addition to the portfolio that we've talked about and writing a short, sweet, and to the point email, use mockups sparingly, but good quality mockups, because if you want to help the client on the other end while they're looking at your portfolio, envision it on a product, you could mock it up using something you find in Creative Market or Etsy to kind of show them this is what I'm envisioning it looking like. Because honestly, designing for product, sometimes I see people and they'll have, and it's fine, I'll have a white mug with one image on it. I have lots of mugs like that. But how could you use your art and your surface patterns to fill that mug up with a really unique individual design that works within the confines of how they have to manufacture it? And always, your unique point of view needs to be coming through every time you contact someone. Did I answer that question, or is there more to it? I kind of got lost in my own thoughts.
Honestly, that was great. Anything that you would exclude or include in the email that you send out when you're pitching?
Ooh, okay. Exclude your life story unless they ask you for it. Recently though, someone did ask me for it and I was like, okay. And I put it in my email and it didn't work out in the end. I was like, whatever. Okay. But I short, sweet, and to the point. You want to be like who you are, where you're from, what you do, what makes you special, and like why you think this company would be a good collaboration. You kind of want to make it super easy to get a yes. And so you're going to do your research. Do not just copy and paste. Like I have templates that I use for my pitching, but I'm always adapting those and making sure that I'm speaking directly to the client I'm talking to. And I think that's kind of a rookie mistake, is someone will get a hold of a template and they'll be like, yes, found it. And then they just send the same email to everybody over and over again. So it's the human touch that needs to come through your emails, even though we're not with someone. I always remember that there's a real person on the other side of that inbox. And I imagine we're having a conversation. And even when I get a rejection, you have to know that the person on the other side is just a person too, trying to make the best decisions for the company they work for. And that's why like us just using our like creative vision to really paint a picture for them of like, this is what I think we could do together. I think it goes a long way.
I love that. Yeah, any pitch emails that I've done, they're short, simple, sweet. The goal is just to get them to respond to that first email. Yes, I'm interested in hearing more. And then we kind of get into it. So for any sort of cold outreach, that goal with that first email is just to get a response, and then you get the ball rolling. So yeah, good one. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about community. So Sandra asks, what is the best way to meet other designers and entrepreneurs, and how did you and Stacy meet? So I'll do Stacy and I first. I think I reached out to you last year, maybe the year before, to see if you wanted to join a mastermind that I was putting together with high-level surface designers, art licensors. And I think we're up to what, 9 of us now?
Yeah.
And we get on a call every 6 weeks and we just talk about what we're working on, the industry itself, new opportunities, challenges we're facing, questions we have. And this is something, kind of putting these masterminds together is something I started doing in 2020 because, everybody was bored, stuck at home. And I was like, I miss community. So yeah, I just started reaching out to other women in my industry to see if they wanted to hop on a Zoom call and just chat industry, shop talk. And that kind of evolved into these really nice, strong friendships. So that's how Stacy and I met. And that's how I built a community around myself as well, as having those calls. Another thing that I found to be really helpful is Facebook groups that are specifically for surface designers, art licensors. I think, Stacy, do you have a membership group or community on Facebook or on your website?
We have a very large free Facebook group. I think there might be, it's either 10, it's like over 10,000 people in it. It may be even more than that, honestly, but it's artists from all over the world, from all different stages, who are coming together to ask questions. Now, it's a large group, so people do have to post and be brave to share, because the bigger the group gets, the scarier it gets. But honestly, it's one of the most fun, nurturing free Facebook groups where we really care that, we keep it like high vibes. That's like how we do it. High vibes, not negativity, even though there's stuff to be sad about. We can share struggles without going into the bad, dark place. I'm like, don't go to the dark place. So I just think having a place where you can share your wins and your struggles is incredibly important. So free Facebook groups, we have that. And then I also have the course, which has a private community inside of it, and Leverage Your Art. It's hosted on Mighty Networks. And I have a membership and a mastermind I run to. But so much like you, Kat, my earliest relationships were just people who I reached out to, who I thought I had something in common with. And it was like just a DM group on Instagram, and then it turned into a text group. And now it's like WhatsApp. And we're just always keeping in touch. The people who you meet now in your journey are the people you're going to grow alongside over the next several years and maybe collaborate with later. And I just want to pivot on this, because you might have a path right now that you're both on that's very similar, but one of you may discover, like, I can get hired full-time as an artist working for this company, and I'm going to go do that. And someone else may stay doing art licensing, and someone else may get into teaching. But someday, even if your paths diverge a little bit, you can still collaborate with each other. And that's one of my favorite things. One of the women from my early chat group, she now does a lot of our reels for product, because she found, I don't like drawing as much, but I'm really good at documenting it and making cute reels. So we work together, and it's so fun.
That's so cool. I love that. Next question is for Stacy, and it's Shannon. And she asks, any advice for someone who wants to make art, but worries that their art will never be good enough to use? For example, someone who can come up with endless ideas, but struggles to translate those ideas to paper or canvas. how do you decide to paint every day?
Ooh, well, I'm going to give bad advice, and I don't paint every day. Maybe not bad advice, but I will tell you that it's okay to be in a, like, there's two things. I'm going to talk about like the pressure to paint every day. It can be a real positive thing for many, many people and keep you committed and working. But if you're the type of person that's a little bit perfectionistic, and every time you make a piece of work, you're putting it through the filter, this was not just to improve on my skill, this had to be monetized or else, like, that's going to put pressure on you to where your work's not going to actually sing the way you want it to. I've been there, especially whenever I really needed to see income coming in from my art. I was like, every piece of art I make has to be 100% perfect because I want to buy my groceries. And yes, now I can say that my work over time has improved to where when I do sit down, I can make something solid out of it. But early on, when you're still finding your voice, that kind of pressure could actually stifle you. So maybe if you can, and that's easier said than done, right? Take the pressure off. But you've got to draw for play still. And you've got to draw with the expectation that you're only going to get better. Because the truth is, there are pieces that I was really proud of 14 years ago. And now I look back on them, I'm like, I have grown so much since then. And yet I think I still was able to see like the beginnings of what I've built there. So I think it's always important to go back and look at your early work, especially right now if you're feeling stuck. I would pull out your earliest work and look at how far you've grown and come. And then I think because you probably have grown and we only feel the losses. The losses are what are right in front of us. But the little growth spurts are like, they're tiny. It's like my daughter over the summer, she grew 6 inches and I'm like, where did this happen from? And it just happened like when I was barely even looking, because every day it was just a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. So your growth spurts are happening, and your growth spurts are going to happen on your own timeline. And I think that if you're still doubting yourself, you have to have a community of people who you can surround yourself with and be like, hey, I'm struggling. I feel like I'm not getting places. This is my art. Do you have critique, ideas? I can't visualize it on products yet. And let those people be your sounding board. You don't have to go like to the public and Instagram. A small group, a collaborative community, like they'll tell you what they think, but they'll also be there because they've been there too. And I think it's kind. So that's what I think.
I like that. Stacie, in your community that you mentioned, do you have opportunities for artists to do critiques with each other?
In the free Facebook group, if people want to ask for advice, they're more than welcome to. And I always love it whenever I see people be self-starters, because this is another secret I think a lot of people don't realize. I've been there. You're waiting for the perfect teacher or the perfect guide to come to you and find you. And yes, I'm a teacher and so is Kat. We love teaching people, but a lot of times people don't realize they have a lot of power being proactive on their own. So sometimes people like, if only I could pay for a portfolio review, then I'd get to where I need to go. And I love a good portfolio review, but I'm going to tell you that like you on your own probably have the ability to do more by putting yourself out there and taking some risks and asking for advice and help. It's going to help you grow faster rather than waiting for the perfect everything. I teach a really small course. I think it's $47, and it's called Art That Works. And it teaches artists how to critique their own work, because I see that probably being one of the number one barriers for people is like, is my art good enough? Is my art ready to sell? So there's principles of art and design that we can always turn to. And if you didn't go to art school, you may have no idea what those are. So Art That Works is something that I created because I wanted it to be really affordable for artists to begin looking at their work differently. And there's a little critique guide in there to teach you how to score it. And I kind of try to systemize it so people can have an idea like, is this work ready for prime time? And it's been phenomenal to see the results that people have had from learning how to look at their own work.
I resonate with that a lot. Something I want to tack onto that is if you wait until you feel like you're ready, you'll never do anything. You've just got to get out there and start, and then you learn as you go. I mean, at least that's what has worked out best for me, is just getting started.
Absolutely. You have to get started. And if it's not today, when is it going to be? And I don't mean today, like right this minute, go drop everything, but you know, in your gut, like I know in my gut, whenever I'm like putting off something that I know I should be working on, we all have different kind of signals, spidey signals. And for me, whenever I start just like, there's a certain show, I won't say which one it is, but when I start binge watching this specific show, I know that I am like in the middle of procrastination city when I should be taking action. And I think Kat and I have both indicated like, we're real self-starters, and we have learned just to be persistent and take action. And the students who I've seen grow the most are the ones who like They do something and it doesn't work. So they pivot and they try something else, and they pivot and they try something else. And that's where innovation happens. And I think a lot of the people who you follow online, that's like the secret weapon for a lot of them, is they just keep thinking outside the box a little bit and knocking until the door opens.
That's so true. That's golden advice. Stacy, I'm so glad you're here today. Okay. Next question is from Katrina, and she's asking, and this actually applies to both Stacy and me, so we can both answer this one. Is it a good idea to create an artist name if your name is common? Would you want it to sound like a real name or a name of a business and brand? So my last name is impossible to spell. It's Cocolette. I think it's easy to pronounce, but it gets butchered a lot. And so I shortened my last name for my brand. Instead of my full name, which is Catherine Carter Cocolette, I'm just CatCoq. That's my brand name. It's easy to type in, and that's why I went with it. I wanted something that would be a really easy URL to type in, and I wanted something that would be SEO friendly, which means if you type CatCoq into Google, I'm going to be the one and only CatCoq that pops up. So as you're coming up with what you want to go by, maybe it's your own name, maybe it's a brand name, maybe it's both. Some artists have a brand name that they put the logo on all of their art prints, and then they have their signature right above it. So you can mix and match, but I think the most important thing is that it's unique. And if someone Googles it, you're going to be the only one that pops up.
Like my name, Gingiber. What does it mean? How do you spell it? We'll never know. Well, we will know because I'll tell you. But honestly, when I started my Etsy shop, I called it Gingiber because in my mind, I had never heard of art licensing. I only knew a few artists that went by their name. It was like Mary Englebright. And I was like, I'm not Mary Englebright. I'm not worthy. And so I really just was like, this is what you do. You make a brand. So I opened up a Latin dictionary. Well, actually, before I started Gingiber in college, this is leveraging my college degree, guys. My senior year of college, I had to create the Stacy Bloomfield brand. If I were to brand myself and make a magazine, what would it be? And I called it Gingiber. I opened up a Latin dictionary because I'm all like, I'm a quick decision person. I listened to my gut and I was like, I'm not going to wait for the perfect name. I'm just going to open up a Latin dictionary, find a word that I like, and I'm going to use it for this project. And it really just means ginger. It's like a really old iteration of the word of ginger. So Gingiber. And then a few years later, had my baby, trying to open my Etsy shop. I just leveraged all that branding that I did for my college project, popped it into Etsy. And I had no idea that it would be what people knew me as. In town, when I'm at the store, people call me Gingiber. They don't know my name is Stacy Bloomfield. And it's kind of cute. Or they call me other things. They don't know how to pronounce it. But what's funny is with licensing, because that's where I started as a product-based brand and then kind of found my way into licensing. The brand name is valuable. So when I license, it's Gingiber or Stacy Bloomfield for Gingiber. And it depends on what the client wants. With education, people know me as Stacy Bloomfield, but it's still, sometimes I get scared going by my own name. I don't know why. I like who I am, but that's a vulnerable place. So if you're not the type of person who feels like putting your name on everything, you can shorten it like Kat did. You can go by your first name, middle name, made up word. It's whatever makes you feel comfortable. And if you don't like what you call yourself, you're never going to like it. So just like get cozy with your name.
That's really solid advice because you're going to live with it for a while. So, and something else I want to tack onto that is if you're licensing a product or selling an original, whatever it is, for every output that your designs have out in the world, you should keep either your logo, your signature, a print of your name, logo, whatever should be somewhere on that piece. And so for everything that I license in all of the contracts, it states CatCoq must be listed somewhere on the product. So if it's something like, let's just say an art print, obviously my signature is going to be right there. And that helps me get a lot of other opportunities. So one of my first big licensing deal was actually with Urban Outfitters. And that's something I pushed for was, hey, can I have my signature on that work that's finally, sold in your stores? And they said, yeah, no problem. And I got a lot of other art licensing deals because my name was visible. I got that brand association with Urban Outfitters and more opportunities came my way. So if you are licensing your work, make sure that your logo or your signature, your legible, easy to read and easy to Google signature is somewhere on that product. If it can't be on the product itself, then I ask for it to be on the packaging or the product tag. So just a little extra tip there. Let's do one more question before we get to the chat questions. So this is the last of the pre-submitted we'll go through. And Stacy, it's for you from Lisa Blake. And she says, if you were starting out now, what would you focus on first? Licensing, wholesale, print on demand, direct to consumer, or teaching, and why?
Well, I will tell you, maybe I'll say what I wouldn't start with and work my way back. Let's whittle away at this question, Lisa. I promise I'll try to be brief here. I think that I am so fortunate to get to teach now because I've been doing this for 14 years. I have tried just about everything. I've had high highs, low lows, and I've had every learning experience. Every day I learn something new, in fact, that I think someday I could teach someone about. So when it comes to being a teacher, for me personally, I could not have started with teaching. I think I needed the experience of working as an illustrator, as a licensed artist to build the confidence. I was not a natural teacher. It's something I actually used to be like, I will never teach because I'm scared. And now it's one of my favorite things to do. But that came with time. And I think each thing that you do builds on the other thing. So I didn't know about art licensing when I first started out. I knew what a portfolio was. I carried around a little leather portfolio with all my original work in it. Like as a child, I was like that kid because I'm like, oh, I'm an artist. And I had like 12 pieces in it, but I didn't know what it meant to have a marketable art portfolio that would actually get you income. So if I could go back in time, I'm glad I started the Etsy shop when I did. I wish that while I had started that Etsy shop and got my work out there in that medium, that I had taken that art and put it in a portfolio, a proper portfolio, and started sharing it. Because honestly, like, you're going to find this once you kind of find your niche and your voice. Like when you're new to the scene and people are first discovering you, there's a little bit of magic there. Being new makes you fearless. Being new means that you get to tell your story as it's happening. And I had no idea what was even possible. So even if I hadn't gotten licensing deals right away, I wish I had built a portfolio of that work I put on Etsy and had learned how to pitch myself sooner. And you can do these things in tangent, actually, depending on how you choose to focus to spend your time. I don't want you to spread yourself too thin, but that's the really cool part about building a marketable portfolio is once it's there and it's solid, you get to pretty much choose your adventure of what you want to do with it. And I always say that licensing is a long game. So you kind of want to like, if you're fishing, you want to cast that, put it there, and then sit it down and maybe sit down while the fish are hanging out there to get the little wormy worm, and then you go do something else. And I like to use my time and leverage it to my full potential. P.S. I don't know how to fish. I think that's how it works. But I just think that like we have so many opportunities that we don't realize to use the work we already have and share it with people that we've never thought about. So if I could go back, that's how I would have restructured it.
That's a really solid answer. I resonate with a lot of that too. I think one of my big regrets at the very beginning stage was just not getting started sooner. I had a lot of limiting beliefs and I didn't have a lot of confidence about my artwork because it just wasn't something I ever thought I would pursue. I was like, I went to school to become a graphic designer. I worked as a designer at an agency and
oh, it's Cat.
It's
I
Cat.
thought it was okay. I was like, wait a second. Okay, so Cat is frozen for a second, but let me say that the imposter syndrome was real for me too. Cat and I have a very similar story in the beginning where we began to kind of veer off later. Now she's adventuring and just doing this traveling nomad life that is so inspiring. When I have a degree in graphic design too. She's from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm from Springfield, Missouri. So we're not far from each other, but we never crossed paths. And I thought there was only one thing I could do. I thought as an artist, the only way to make money was to get a degree in graphic design and go work for someone like designing billboards or pamphlets. And I thought that was my only way forward because no one had shown me there was any other possibility. In fact, when I would tell people about doing art, I would get a lot of discouraging answers. I remember in my premarital counseling with my husband, the pastor, and he was nice, but he was like, oh, you're going to get yourself an art kiosk in the mall there and draw yourself some portraits. That's a cool idea. And I was like, maybe. I don't know what's possible because when people think of artists, oftentimes they don't mean to be, but they're demeaning about it. And we're trying to change that narrative that being an artist is like not only like viable and noble, but it's a calling. And I think that's what's really cool about creatives actually and artists is that we are called to create the beauty that we need to see. I know that sounds trite, but it's true. When I am in a rut, when I'm having a bad day, when something's not working for me at work, when I get a rejection email, which still happens because I'm still pitching my portfolio, whenever I plan something to the T and it doesn't go right, my husband always says, hey, Stacy, it's time to go draw some art. Because he knows that that is deep down inside of me, what resonates with me and makes me feel whole. And I bet some of you are that way too. And I've also been the person who like holds it so tightly, my art, trying to monetize it, that sometimes I feel like I am like crushing the oxygen that it needs to grow. And so I feel like it's this weird thing where we're putting ourselves out there, but we're also holding it loosely in our hands so that we can give it space to grow. Because I can tell you where I'm at right now in my career is never where I dreamt I would be. Even though I have vision, even though I have goals, and I'm sure you do too, the path that it's taken to get here has felt very different. So early on in my career, I didn't have cheerleaders. I didn't have a path. I didn't know what was possible. And I was piecemealing together everything myself because back then, 14 years ago, no one was telling me, start here. Here's how you build a portfolio. Here's how you pitch. I think artists today actually have a huge leg up because there's a lot of information out there and a lot of trusted information from people who are really doing it, like Kat and me. And there's a lot of us out there who honestly, we just want people to grow faster than we did. Know that it's normal, the pain and the experiences that you're going through early as an artist, but the more you do it, the better it gets. It's like a muscle that you keep having to exercise. Let's see, Elena, are there any questions? You know, Kat had a storm happening where she's at, so I'm happy just to keep going.
I'm actually back.
She's back.
I'm in Costa Rica. There's this massive storm overhead right now, and we just lost power in the co-working space, but it's back on. So yeah, Stacy, I have another chat question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be, what kind of companies would you target for individual spot illustrations? And this is from Amy.
Oh, great. And I also saw someone asked if I ever worked as a graphic designer. Yes, I did briefly. And then I did layout work for a magazine, a children's magazine. I was their design editor, and I literally just did it to create income for a while. Spot illustrations. I want you to think about t-shirts, t-shirt companies and clothing companies, children's clothing, pillowcases, greeting cards. So like when I do work for sellers and I do greeting cards, usually it's just a single illustration that's on a white background. Art prints, canvas art. I have some art that's in, it's not TJ Maxx, but it's in somewhere similar to TJ Maxx. And a lot of it is just stretched canvas. It's licensed. And then there's just one of my little animal illustrations in the middle of it. Spot illustrations are great for editorial, for books, if you so choose that route. And I think that, truth be told, narrative art and filling an entire page with color is really hard for me. And I can tell you that some of my most licensed pieces of work that have made me the most money have been like an animal on a white background. So there are a lot of different ways that you can approach that.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah. And I want to mention here it's called standalones. You have either seamless patterns or standalones. And a standalone, I'm like looking around for examples. This isn't my design, but it's a sticker that my boyfriend's sister gave me. It says "Cats Against Catcalls." This is a standalone piece. And so for standalones, they work really well as stickers or wall art in particular. So for all of my standalone pieces in my portfolio, I mostly license those on wall art, whereas a lot of the patterns that I have in my portfolio those are the things that get printed on products like wallpaper, throw pillows, apparel, things like that.
This is kind of hard to see. So this is actually one of our own products that we sell, but this is a standalone illustration. We turned it into an embroidery kit. I've licensed this piece. It's a little illustration of like a little doll, and it's just on a white background. So think about things like this. Like if you were doing crafts and embroidery, like that's just a standalone illustration and someone can stitch on it. There are embroidery companies, cross-stitching companies. There are a lot of ways that you can use one of those standalone illustrations.
Yeah, I'm having some of mine converted into a coloring book for Crayola this year, which launches next year. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Amazing.
So people can literally fill in my artwork. Okay, cool. Next question is from Sandra, and she asks, what are the standard percentages of of earnings and time limits for licensing contracts? So term limits, 2 years is pretty normal for licensing. In terms of royalty rates, which is the percentage you get paid based off of sales, anywhere from 3 to 10% is pretty average. It tends to be the bigger the company, like the Targets, the Walmarts of the world, the royalty rate is going to be lower, whereas newer companies that are kind of getting started, maybe haven't worked with a lot of licensors yet and don't have that repertoire built up, then the rates can get a little bit higher. And then it also depends on product type. So for wall art, that's definitely my highest revenue in terms of royalties. That gets closer to 10%, whereas products like stationery, those are the ones that dip down a little bit lower. So right now in my licensing portfolio, I've got, I think, 50 active licenses at this very moment, and it's all sorts of products of anything you can imagine I'm probably licensing on. And yeah, wall art is definitely number one in terms of royalty rates, but in terms of just bulk of quantity, stationery does the best for me. Is it similar for you, Stacy?
Sometimes it is. I have one outlier where I have a 25% royalty. It was a small company. And so it was, I mean, you don't usually get royalties that big, but they were like really art centric, like artist focused. And so like I get a check from them. I'm like, yay, it's so nice. Most of mine are in that 3 to 10% category. Wall art, 10%. It's true that the bigger the company is, typically the smaller the royalty percentage. And I'm trying to think where I've made the most money category wise as an illustrator. It's been retroactively clothing because I mean, I don't know if I should share this or not. I'm going to share it. Hey, it's just us. It's just you, me, and 350 people. Something that happens a lot, and I think maybe it'll be helpful. Artists are always afraid to share their work for a lot of reasons, but they're afraid their work's going to be taken. And I can tell you, it might be taken, but it doesn't have to stop you. My work has been lifted, and I mean, we're talking like from my Instagram sometimes, and taken and put on other products, clothing a lot of times. And I registered most of that work to be registered with the US Copyright Office. Now, early on, I didn't because I didn't have the money for that and my style wasn't there. But once I kind of found my style, I knew where my strongest pieces were and I registered them with the US Copyright Office. And so now what happens, because I had that certificate in place and I work with the best lawyer, his name's Jason Aquilino, and he's a part of Leverage Your Art. He's made a template contract for everybody to use for flat fee if you're a student this year, which is really cool. But I go to him and I say, Jason, someone has ripped this up. And he contacts them and sends them a letter. And because I have it registered, we always get a retroactive royalty. And so we have collected over $100,000 from clothing companies, from people who have taken my work and put it on their products. Now, I've got to tell you, there was a time in my life that would have been the worst thing in the world that could have happened to me, someone stealing my work and making it and passing it off as theirs. But it really isn't. And you have so much talent inside of you and you just keep going. And if if you can't afford to register your work yet, you just don't be afraid to share it. And there's always a path forward. All right. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm going to piggyback off that. It's a question that I get a lot from students as well. Like, how do you prevent your art from getting stolen? Yeah, it's really hard. You can't. You either plaster the thing with some sort of watermark, which takes away from the quality of your artwork, or that is a step you can do. I don't do that. I just put my signature on everything that goes on Instagram, anywhere else. And if someone does steal my artwork, then I go after them. So I used to do it on my own. I would just I got a template online for cease and desist, and that usually worked. And then when bigger companies started using my artwork without my permission, that's when I hired an actual attorney. Novian and Novian is the attorney I work with out of LA. They're amazing. And yeah, I've recouped same as you, Stacy, 6 figures so far of artwork that they have to retroactively pay me for because they didn't pay me for at the very beginning. So you always have some sort of ability to recoup your losses, either having them pull your artwork in general from the internet. It's called the DMCA takedown. You can get a page removed from the internet if it violates your copyright. Just Google DMCA takedown. If you want to take it up an extra level, cease and desist. If it's a big company like a brick and mortar and they pay you back for your artwork, that's where you bring the big guns in. So that's worked out pretty well.
And P.S. I want to add this, that we're happy to tell you all about this, but I'm going to tell you this is one of the most common questions I get from students. And a lot of times the things that hold us back are fear-based, this fear of what if, and people want to solve problems that are maybe never going to happen to them just for a feeling of safety, because I know what it's like. It's like, oh, I want to plan like 8 steps ahead so I feel safe and secure. Yes, I'm all for knowledge and learning to protect yourself. But if you, again, are holding yourself back because of a hypothetical thing that could happen, like I'd want to challenge you that we need you to share your work. That's the only way that people learn about you and you flex your muscle and learn how to tell your story better. So don't let the fear of the what if stop you from going.
That's solid advice. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this is a question that I get a lot from students, and Stacy, I'm sure it's the same for you. It probably resonates with a lot of you guys in the chat right now. The question is about saturation. It's Amy, and she's saying, I'm concerned that the market, like Society6 or Etsy, is too saturated with content creators like us. How do you handle that? And is it unrealistic to think that I could stand out?
Ooh, you know, if you're not looking at what everyone else is doing, then you don't have to worry about that. That's maybe a cop-out answer, but it's kind of true. I got to tell you something that I have had to exercise for myself more and more because of the comparison trap. And yes, there are a lot of artists out there. The difference is, social media is showing us more of what it thinks we want to see. So we're all artists and it keeps showing us more artists' work, right? And so it can feel like we're being inundated. And it's always going to show us artists' work who are getting likes and follows because that's what the algorithm does. So talk about struggling with imposter syndrome. Social media is tailor-made to make you feel less than and make you feel like someone else is doing it. I can never do it too. Can I tell you how many times, like I draw a fox a specific way. People know my fox when they see it. Other people can draw foxes. I don't think that the fox market has been cornered. I think that my voice is what matters. And so over the past few years, the bigger my company has gotten, the more I have tried to stay off of social media because, like I said at the very beginning, it's self-preservation, but also we do better work whenever we're not distracted by these things. So for me, I'm still have a business that's growing. We're still selling products. My artwork is still being liked and shared, and I'm on social media less and less. And I think that that is actually protecting my heart. And we all need to protect our hearts because you just never know when you're going to see something that makes you feel less than, or someone says something flippant because they don't know who you are. That destroys me and will set me back weeks in my progress. So yes, there's a lot of people out there, but I want to come at it from a different way because it's always going to feel like there's always going to be something. There's market saturation. There's more people doing this. Art licensing used to have a smaller pool of artists interested in it. Will there still be room for me? Well, honestly, we're a consumerist society. Whether we overconsume or not, we are. Products are being produced every day and people put art on those products. And so there is opportunity for our art in so many places. So if we're looking at it just practically, yeah, there's room. If we're looking at it like it feels overwhelming, don't look at it. Or if you want to still look at things, do it in a community where people are going to be there to cheer you on and support you and give you the best advice possible because they care about you. That's my thought.
That's so sweet. I love how you tackle these mindset questions as well, because I think that's something a lot of artists struggle with. I mean, I certainly did at the beginning stages of my career that like, I'm not worthy, or, there's so many better artists out there, but everyone has their unique artistic voice. Everyone has something to share. And something I want to piggyback off that with, actually, we're at time right now. Stacy, are you good for another 10 minutes?
I can do 10 more minutes and then I got to scoop.
10 minutes sounds good. Thank you. Something I want to tack on to that question of oversaturation with a lot of content creators in this space. Since I got started with print on demand, that's kind of what broke me into this surface design art licensing industry. And I'm still really active on print on demand right now. But it's a really different beast today than it was back in 2014 when I first got started. There's a lot of content creators and there's a lot more competition. But one thing that I would encourage you to look at if you are pursuing anything with print on demand, even Etsy, anything like that, is having your artwork, giving it a presence online is more than just getting those sales. I've had licensing deals come out of people reaching out to me because they found my artwork on Society6. So something I want to just plug in here real quick is anywhere on the internet where you have your artwork, have your contact information there as well. So whether it's your email address, your website, your social handles, or all of the above, I would say email is probably the most important, because every licensor or licensee manufacturer that's reached out to me has reached out to me via email. No DMs, it's always email. So I have my email on absolutely everything. So if you kind of gauge my success on Society6 or any print on demand website based on sales, it's one measurement of success, but then having that exposure and it's basically like the calling card. It's plastering my work all over the internet has gotten me a lot more deals as well. And one thing that's helped a lot with that is utilizing keyword tags and strategic titles with my artwork. Because if you're going to Google, CatCoq alpaca, probably the first one that pops up is going to be my alpaca on Society6 that's sold there. So they do really good SEO stuff. So yeah, that's helped me a lot as well, is just getting noticed from having my artwork on these websites that are very saturated. But that means there's going to be a lot of manufacturers browsing through those as well.
Absolutely. That's great advice.
actually worked for me the best because my pitching wasn't very good. Again, I didn't have a call to action. I was just like, dum, 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 here we go. And a lot of my success early on was from brands finding me. And it's because I made myself very, very findable, email everywhere. And I responded to emails very, very quickly. So next question is from Christine, and Stacy, it's for you. And she wants to know, is this class Leverage Your Art for someone who is just beginning to explore the type of art that they're interested in marketing or creating? She says, I am a graphic designer and photographer, but have been pulled towards exploring a surface design pattern. And I feel like I want to create in this area. Is starting in a completely new area of art and design even possible to become successful?
Yes. Okay. So if you visit the link that Cat has for affiliates, we have a section of videos on the sales page where it talks about people who weren't even working as artists and now have careers after they've taken Leverage. Graphic designers, an environmental scientist. I mean, you can be from any walk of life and start in Leverage and walk out with the skills you need to build something. And I am so confident in this. We actually re-recorded and restructured the entire course. This is the 4th year of this course, and we've had thousands of artists come through Leverage Your Art. And I'm so proud of that. But what makes this year incredibly special is we really thought about you, this person who's talking specifically. We thought about most people are right where you're at. They're taking a leap. They have a dream and they want to see, is it even possible? They're scared to bet on themselves because it feels like maybe you're an adult and people don't start things over whenever you're an adult, right? That's why we created the class and structured it exactly the way we did. Our modules literally build listen, if you have already been doing art for a while, you need to pay attention to this too, because there's something I'm really good at, and that's talking about myself and my brand. And so I think that a lot of artists have opportunities to learn how to clean this up and learn how to talk about themselves, tell their brand story, find their voice and style as an artist. And this all happens simultaneously. It's not like you're going to be like, perfect the style, check, talk about myself, check. This has to happen as you're growing. And so the way you talk about yourself today as someone who's like beginning, it's like, I'm a graphic designer who's exploring art and surface pattern design. And you talk about why you care about that. That's how you talk about your story now. My first pitch emails in my about me, it was like, I'm Stacy. I'm a mom. I was featured on a blog once and I drink too much coffee. And you know what? It worked because it was real and authentic. And so the first part of the course really talks about this. And then we move into the portfolio building. And yes, even if you only have one mini collection, I'm going to show you how to lay out that sucker so you can share it with the world, and how to build the portfolio as your brand grows, and how to even build a website someday, which is where my portfolio is hosted. If you want to check it out, it's gingiberportfolio.com. And I teach you how to build that site in the course. So there's a lot of little hidden nuggets there. So then we move into art licensing. We have an art licensing rate calculator. We have my attorney come in to do Q&A for intellectual property. We teach you how to pitch, how to write that email, and then how to do more with it. And here's what's really cool about it. Some people spend the first year after taking the course hanging out in modules 1, 2, and 3. And that's actually perfect because you get lifetime access to this version of the course. So then you go back and you can use this content later when you need it. So I have students from 2020, which was my first year, who I still get emails from. They're like, Stacy, I dug into module 5 and I use this thing and I couldn't use it when I first started, but now I do. Because frankly, for me, the idea of splitting it up into 2 classes just sounded like absurd. I want to put it in one place so it's your creative business toolkit, so that you don't have to go everywhere else to look for like these fundamentals. And then we have people who are more advanced who take the course too. Like we have an interview with illustrator and licensed artist, Kristen Katz. She was in lesson 3 of our mini course, and her interview's on our sales page too. She was already making money as an artist. And she came into Leverage and was able to elevate her brand and her story and just explode even more. So that's a long-winded way of saying, yes, it's for you if you're just starting.
Stacy, you could be a motivational speaker. I wish I had you at the beginning of my career.
Thank you. Yeah. I would love to be a part of everyone's beginning career. I mean, honestly, I think encouraging artists is where my heart is at. It's the thing that got me started teaching a few years ago. I'm sure there's more questions and we got to wrap it up, but I'll just say, honestly, I am a pretty, what you see is what you get person. And I don't pull a lot of like BS, and I just really care about artists and where they're at. It's something that my whole life people would tell me, is that I was good at encouraging people. And I used to think that they were just saying that to be nice. And then I realized that like, I have so much joy that comes from getting to talk to people about where they're at in their lives and trying to help them find a way forward, the next step. If I can help someone get unstuck, that's the goal. And so hopefully I'm helping some of you get unstuck today. Thanks. Yeah.
That was great. It's true, Stacy. You are really encouraging. Just in our mastermind, like having gotten to know you over the last year. I mean, I've made strides in my business, and it's, you know, it's the collective voices, but it's also you're very supportive. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here today and answering all these questions. I know we have a lot in the chat, but I think we are just about at time. But Stacy, thank you for being here, and thank you everyone for coming and joining and listening. It's really great to, you know, hop on these calls and share and get to give this sort of feedback to everyone. So thank you. Any final words from you, Stacy?
Honestly, you always say end with a call to action. So I'm going to end with a call to action. My course, Leverage Your Art, is open for enrollment until August 29th. I only open it once a year. It's a fantastic course. I know it may seem like I'm just going to say that because I'm selling the course because it's my course, but like, I'm so proud of it. And I hope that you'll consider it. Go check out the sales page. If you have questions, Kat and her team can answer them for you. I think that it's going to help you grow, in a year from now. You're going to look back and be really happy that you made this decision. That's all. I just really hope you'll check it out.
All right. Thank you everybody for being here. And keep an eye out for the recording tomorrow morning. So thank you very much, Stacy. Again, thank you for joining. And we'll see you guys for the next Zoom call.
Awesome. Bye.